are desperate for justice.
I serve Robert Bruce. Join us to free others!
I'm just curious about your experience working with David Mackenzie, because this is a very, very different film than Hell or High Water. It's a very personal story to him. I'm curious if the experience filming the movie was a radically different experience.
It was radically different in that it was a much bigger budget with many, many more people involved. You know, a second unit whose whole job was to film the action sequences, which David didn't have much experience. And I was curious to have someone like David with his auteur's vision of the world handle a milieu of filmmaking that I'm more used to, that's usually a bit more straightforward. And I think he did, gangbusters with it. I think what you feel and see in this film is one is inevitably expecting a tentpole archetypical hero journey like a Braveheart, and you don't get that really. You get a version of it, but it's David's unique take on it. So I find it way more a meditation on a complex man whose motivations are still kind of unclear to me in a world that is full of violence. And this movie asks the question of what is man's will to power, will to dominate, will to commit acts of violence. What price is one willing to pay for these words and concepts called nation, state, and patriotism?
Is it true? You're the King of Scots.
Go tell all your friends we're going to win our country back.
And you name dropped it. I'm curious if Braveheart was a reference point for you in any way throughout the making of this.
No, not really. I mean, in a sense of, this was a story that's never really been told in historical sort of events. I mean, I didn't know of the story. So, when we dived into research, it kind of unraveled how rich this story was and how sort of Shakespearean in a sense of betrayal and whatnot.
Well, I think really, first of all, it's the filmmaker behind it. It's a touchstone insofar as it's the second movie of its quality in a very long in a certain amount of time dealing with a co-current people in medieval history in Scotland. So by that token, yes, it's the same kind of film. But the type of filmmaking is very vastly different. You have one, I think, again, which really hits all of the kind of notes of a Hollywood huge swelling music, huge score, a kind of beautifully moral hero. And this has, you might expect that to happen or want to see that in this film because David is David, and David doesn't like schmaltz. He doesn't like to give anything on a silver platter. I think he makes you hunt for your version of the story, just like we had to hunt for this version of the man. I hope people are exhausted by the end of this film, and instead of a rousing, sweeping victory where people's arms are chopped off and deboweled and the audience is like, hooray for gross violence.
Right.
We haven't been in one audience where that has happened, and I think it's because people are exhausted, because fighting is brutal and it's awful and it's ugly, and the notion I glommed onto is what price, this is the price you have to pay for your desire to have power and be a king. And that is the truth.
If I die tomorrow.
No, I will speak
If I
with him.
die tomorrow, do whatever you must. Do you understand?
And I do also just want to ask about those battle sequences, though, because they are chaotic. They are, like, it's very realistic in just the sense that, like, it's all just right there. And I'm just curious, kind of, if it was an organized chaos on set, or if it really was kind of just the madness that we see.
No, it was pretty chaotic and relentless and grueling, and I think that's, again, Mackenzie's way of filmmaking. He likes to capture that essence and therefore creates that kind of environment. It felt like, we were a pack of wild animals, and it was capture what you can, and there were moments of realism, really. I mean, it was
Capture
tough.
what you can. Yeah.
Right.
We could fight for God, for country, for family. I do not care, so long as you fight!